1960s. I'm going to go through the plumbing system in this house. So I want to show you guys what it is that I look for in a house that was built in the 1960s. The main supply of water comes in from the utility company right here. You have a shutoff here, you have your water meter here, you come up and you have a secondary shutoff right here. With this house, I want to check the main supply on the shutoff here. That I can't turn. It's seized. It's locked in place. I can't do anything to turn that. Up here, I've got my secondary shutoff, and this one works just fine. I got no concerns with that. It's working just fine. So in terms of what I would tell a buyer, yes, you can shut the water off in here, and really this is the most important thing in a house. If there's ever a water leak somewhere, you want to be able to turn your water off as fast as possible. So at this house here, your main water shutoff is this one. You would come down here and you would shut that off. This one here, this should be working too. If you ever needed to get this one off and the handle broke, or for some reason you couldn't get it to turn off, you'd want to know that this one worked as well. So if I was talking to someone that was looking into buying this house, I would tell them to get this fixed. From there, the supply pipes that move water through the building. In houses in the 1960s, most of them are copper pipes. If you've had any retrofits done or any upgrades done to the house, you may find some newer PEX. Galvanized steel pipes usually are in houses that are older than this. You don't find galvanized steel pipes in houses this age. It's predominantly going to be copper pipes in houses this age. So we've got copper on the supply coming in. This water shutoff works, this one does not. This one will need to be fixed. From the main water shutoff, your supply, so your copper pipes are your supplies. You've got two here. You have a hot water and a cold water pipe. From the water shutoff, I want to chase this cold water pipe straight over to the water heater, which is just over here. So we'll go over there next and take a look. So from the main water supply over in the corner over there, cold water comes across over to here, turns, and comes down into your water heater. This water heater right here, one of the things I always try to figure out right away is whether or not the tank is owned or rented. Where we live, the majority of water heaters are rented. With this one here, I don't see a big sticker that says rental. A lot of the times when they're rental units, the sticker will say this is the property of Reliance Home Comfort or Direct Energy or whoever the utility company is that owns the water heater. They've usually got a big sticker on it that says, we own this, it's a rental. With this one here, you don't see that sticker. Secondly, when you look on here, it says do not return to the place of purchase. That usually means that this was purchased from a hardware store or plumbing supply company and then brought over here from there. So I would say that this one is owned. It does not look like it's a rental unit. Other things you want to look for on here is how old is this water heater? This one was made November 14th, 2017. Water heaters, it depends on where you live. If you have high hardness in your water, water heaters tend to break down a little quicker. If you have water softeners, if you're drawing from lake water and you have low hardness in your water, they will last longer. With this area in here, there's very hard water. There's no water softener on the building. So this one here, I would expect it to run somewhere between 10 and 15 years. So knowing that it's from 2017, it's not a very good unit. There's still lots of time to go on this. Other things that I'm looking for, this is an electric water heater. The majority of water heaters that I deal with are definitely natural gas. So their primary energy source to heat the water is natural gas. This one is electric. You can tell there's two heating elements right here. In terms of how long electric water heaters last, it's really the elements that break down on these. Usually nothing really happens to the tank itself. It's just that the elements will get, they either corrode or they get caked in calcium and the heat doesn't go from the element into the water. With these, there's an anode in the top. An anode is a softer metal that the hard water will actually degrade it. It will consume it. So then that way, the anode, you can change that more frequently because they're inexpensive. They're $15. You can swap out an anode and that protects the elements, which will make this last longer. So in terms of this is definitely in good shape. It's only a couple of years old. It's not leaking anywhere. I'm going to go upstairs and actually run the hot water and make sure that we are getting a hot water to all the faucets and that it is bringing the water up to temperature. But this is actually, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with this. So every building really has two types of pipes in it. There are the supply pipes that bring the water in and up to all your faucets. There are the drain pipes that get rid of the water after you use it. So an example would be a toilet. We have to get the water up to the toilet so that when you flush it, there's water in the reservoir or water in the tank that will flush the toilet through. That would be the supply of water that fills up that tank. Once you've flushed it and that water from the bowl is getting pushed through, that goes through your drain pipe. So the second type of pipe in your house is going to be the drain pipe. So supply pipes, they bring the water in. Drain pipes get rid of the water once you've used it. With this house here, this is a 1960s house. In the 1960s, a lot of the piping that you would see on drains would either be one of two types. It would be copper or cast iron. With this house here, there is still some copper. There is still a little bit of cast iron on the stack. But the drain pipes themselves have been changed out to ABS. In terms of buying a house this age, ABS pipes are good. That means they've had a plumber in fairly recently. They brought that up to the newer code, the newer standard. So really the big thing I'm looking for on here would be any signs that the pipes are leaking. I'm standing underneath a bathtub right now. We were just talking about drain pipes. We want to know whether or not those drains are leaking. If you take a look right here, this is the bottom of a bathtub. There's a lot of caulking, a lot of sealant on this drain. My guess is this drain was leaking, the bathtub was leaking, and they just put that on there to stop the leak. If I was buying this house, those pipes would be coming out pretty quick, and I'd be replacing those with nice new ABS pipes that I know do not leak. We've been talking about the difference in supply pipes versus drain pipes. With drain pipes, because you're flushing waste out of the building, you want to make sure that if there's ever an obstruction or a block in the pipe, a clog, you want to make sure that you can get that clog out. This here is what's called a service cap. If you had something clogging in the pipe where the water leaves the house, a plumber would come in, take this cap off, and run a router through it. They would essentially clear that pipe and push the obstruction through into the city sewer. You always want to make sure that you have access to these. Being able to clean out a clogged drain pipe is important, so you always want to be able to get access to those. One of the questions that insurance companies ask frequently is whether or not there's a backflow valve on the drains. This right here is your backflow valve. So when the water is leaving the building and it goes out to city sewer, there's a little baffle that opens, the water flows through that gate and goes out to the sewer. When there's a backup in the city sewer system, or if the city sewer system gets filled with water, you want to make sure that that doesn't come up into the building. So at this house here, this backflow valve prevents that baffle that's in there, backs up, closes that gate, and the water can't come back up into the house. So if you're going through a house and you're wondering, hey, do I have a backflow valve on my drain system? You'd look for something that looks like this right here. Usually you can see that the tops of these are clear plastic and you can see through. So when the water's going out, you can see it flowing through. And that is how you would know if there's a backflow valve on the house. So let's recap the plumbing system on this house. You always start at the beginning. So where does the water come into this house? And with this building here, the main supply comes in from the utility company or from the water, from the region. You've got two shutoffs. The primary one is seized, so that one's going to need to get fixed. In this area here, I'm not sure if the main water shutoff is the responsibility of the region. They do own the water meter. Do they own that valve? That's something you'd want to check out. Either way, you're going to want to get that fixed. If it was your responsibility after you buy the house, cost on something like that, check with a plumber. It's probably going to be somewhere in the $200 to $250 mark. The secondary shutoff worked just fine. There was no concerns with that. From there, chasing the supply pipes through over to the water heater. The water heater is 3 years old, made in 2017. We're at the beginning of 2020 right now, so 2.5 years old. It's an electric water heater. Yeah, electric costs a little more to run, but they're very simple to maintain, and they do tend to last quite a bit of time because you can just swap the elements out. The insulated tank will be fine. Heating elements are about $50, so if you have to swap out a heating element, it's not that expensive to do. The anodes that are in there, they're inexpensive. They're about $20 to $25. Swapping them out every 2 to 3 years will make the heating elements last a lot longer. So with regards to the water heater, it's in good shape. There's lots of time to go on that. From there, you've got copper pipes that supply hot and cold water to all the faucets in the building. So chasing those through the copper, I didn't find any signs of any water leaks anywhere. I was able to get access to the water shutoff that goes outside, so you can, in the winter, shut your water off so that it doesn't freeze inside the pipe that goes out. With this house, it actually had a frost-free hose bib, which is nice because if you do forget to turn it off in the winter, the risk of it freezing is a lot lower. From there, running to all the different faucets in the house through the copper pipe, I go over to the drains and I check the drains. With this house, you've got a combination of things. You have copper on the drains, you have ABS on the drains, and you have some cast iron on the drains. The cast iron looked fine. It is older. The majority of it has been swapped out. There's only a very small section of cast that goes out to the utility company at the bottom of the stack. The ABS that they put in, I'd say that was probably around 10 years old, somewhere in that time frame. It's not very old. It looked fine. Below the bathtub, there is definitely a Band-Aid that's been put over a leak. That Band-Aid, to pay a plumber to come in and set it up properly, is going to run you somewhere in the $200 to $300 mark. I would definitely do that. If I was buying this house, that is something I would absolutely swap out. There is a little bit of copper pipe. Copper is good. With this house, it's a very small section of the copper. If you've got a plumber in here that's changing the drain on the bathtub, I would just ask them to replace that small section of copper as well. So the plumbing system in this house, there's no leaks. The water heater's okay. There is a seized shutoff, and I would recommend that the Band-Aid that's been put on the bathtub gets changed out.